Welcome to MCN and the launch of Ducati's 2025 Streetfighter V4 S. Now, Ducati have made quite a few changes for this year, and they've said that this is the closest a Streetfighter has ever been to a Panigale. And they're not wrong, but depending on what your flavours are, what your tastes are, that can be both a good and a bad thing. So to get things started, here are the facts. It's the 1103cc V4 motor that's lifted from the Panigale. It makes 211 brake horsepower, 88.5 foot-pound of torque, and will cost you £26,195. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some of the changes that have been made and then go into what it's like to ride. So for starters, they have altered the frame quite substantially. So there's actually 40% less lateral stiffness in the front frame, and the rear it's got 43% less lateral stiffness, and it's dropped 2.9 kilograms as well. As you can see, they've dropped the single-sided swing arm, gone for the same as the Panigale. It's got a double-sided swinger. It comes with Brembo high pure calipers now, which is the same as on the Panigale, although they use a slightly different brake pad for the Streetfighter. It comes with 3rd gen Öhlins, and the suspension has also been tweaked. The forks are 5mm longer. There's a different linkage on the rear, and it's got new wheels as well. It also comes with a new dash, and it's got a plethora of rider-rated electronics. It's got wheelie control, ABS, traction control, it's got slide control. It even has race ECBS, which essentially means when you're using the front brake, it will apply the rear brake for you, which is a really cool little feature. In terms of the motor, this is the most powerful Streetfighter that's ever existed. So it only makes 2 brake horsepower less than the Panigale V4, and to be honest, everything is pretty much the same except a few little tweaks such as the intake. They've also tweaked the riding position slightly. They've moved the bars, they've moved the pegs, the seat and the tank configuration is slightly different. As you can see, it's got some bigger indents, and the wings have been improved as well. So now these bad boys give you 45 kilos of aero at 167 mile an hour, but we're going to talk a bit about that when we talk about how it rides. So for starters, we've been riding it on track today. We've had 6 sessions at Andalusia. We didn't ride it on the road, just on track. It's on Pirelli slicks as opposed to the Diablo Rossos. It comes on as standard. And this thing is an incredible machine to ride. So I'm going to start with a riding position. I'm quite small, I'm at 5'7". Even so, it's a really nice, comfortable place to be for me. The bars are in a nice position, the pegs are in a nice position. The indents on the tank make it really easy to hold on, which is something that's really important on, a naked bike like this. But we've got a couple of bigger gents with us. Lamb Chops is here, John Bennett, and I was just chatting to him, and even for gentlemen of his stature, both horizontally and vertically, I know he won't mind me saying that, he found it really comfortable as well, really roomy. The seats got loads of space, and there's definitely enough room to get about and stay comfortable. Now, in terms of the riding experience, there's sort of different ways you can look at a super naked. So I sort of break them down in my head that you've got the super nakeds of like the MT10, the S1000R, you've got, Triumph's Speed 1200 RS, you've got then the Super Duke, the Tuono. They sort of offer different things, where at one end of the spectrum you've got the MT10, which is just a big toy that just wants to play with you all the time. The Streetfighter sits at the more focused end of the segment. Now, this is either a good thing or a bad thing. It depends what you want from your super naked. If you want something that's quite serious and a proper weapon, then this thing is sublime. But what makes it so good is the fact that it's almost got a split personality. So I was riding it earlier in sport mode. I had the suspension, which is electronically adjustable, in a softer active dynamic mode. I had the aids switched up to the max, and I had the engine on medium as well, which really softens off that throttle response. And when you're riding it, it's just such a gentle, easygoing machine to ride. It feels soft, it feels calm, it doesn't tie itself in knots. It's a really nice pleasant, confidence-inspiring place to be. If you want something that's, you know, a bit easier, a bit friendlier, it can do this for you, and it can do it for you really well. Where previous Ducatis only had one model, and that was going absolutely bananas, this thing can be toned down and can be made to how you want it to be. But when you turn things up a notch, it changes in its personality so much. So you can then put it in race mode. I played around with the active track suspension settings, and I put it in first into high power mode and then into full power mode, which gives you more direct throttle response and, you know, just basically opens up the taps completely. When you stick it into the higher power mode, this thing is an absolute monster. Almost hanging on to it because you haven't got a fairing. It's a big old thing to hold on to. It's a serious bit of kit. And the suspension really stiffens up and really supports you. You can be so aggressive with it. Thanks to the wings and the downforce, it's still quite stable at faster speeds. So although, you know, you may just look at the numbers and think, oh, that doesn't work. When you come out of a second gear corner onto the back straight here, it's super stable, and even though it wants to wheelie from second to third to fourth, it just holds it nicely, and the front is already loaded. You're probably at about 170 mile an hour at the back of the back straight, and the front's loaded as you hit the brakes. It keeps everything together as a package really nicely. Now, Ducati have made the tweaks to the chassis on this. They've also altered the rake and trail, so it is sharp, it is agile, it is nimble. It's probably, but it does get a little bit twitchy in the slower stuff when, you know, the downforce isn't doing its job. You really can feel the difference with that. But as a bike that handles, that goes like nothing else, this thing is literally a super bike with a set of straight bars. It's just like being attached to a rocket ship. When everything's off, it's an absolute animal. It's super exciting. It's just a genuine thrill to ride. I suppose what it comes down to is what you want from a super naked. So if you're accustomed to, you know, doing stoppies and wheelies, you want to have something that's a bit fun, that's a bit sort of quirky. There are better bikes out there for that, like the MT10, the S1000R, the Super Duke 1390. Like, they're really fun bikes that sort of egg you on to be a bit silly and do silly things. But as a performance naked, this thing is the absolute benchmark. Is it too much? Maybe, but too much isn't a bad thing. It's super exciting, super fun, and Ducati really have delivered a Panigale in a Street Fighter.